So if the way I live is based on feelings, how easily are my beliefs affected? Very easy. One thing happens, goes sideways, one deal falls through, all of a sudden my belief is shot. Now the problem with this, and people who are underachievers don't tend to have a very strong belief in themselves. And there's many reasons for that. We've taught this before, but a lot of times it tends to be they know they don't follow through. But if I know I follow through, I have a very much higher belief in myself. You see this over and over, and I can't teach this. This is a discipline that has to be built like a muscle. And so what happens for underachievers, they tend to not have a high belief in themselves. So they tend to not tap into their highest amount of potential.
Hey, this is Blake Sloan. I've been selling real estate over 14 years, and our team of highly trained professionals, along with our unmatched marketing, has sold thousands of homes here in the Myrtle Beach area, and this is how we do it.
Today, if I'm tired, if I had a bad day yesterday, guess what I do? I do it anyway. I do it anyway. I do it anyway over and over and over. I show up, make my 100+ dials, because that's my what? Standard. And that standard is what's going to get me to success. And that's all I care about. And that goes back to what I talked about earlier, is am I connected to my true purpose? Because once I'm connected to my true purpose, I'm able to live by a standard, not by feelings. Because here's the thing, I don't really care how I feel that day. I care about getting my result on the back end, which is what I want. And I see it over and over. You can watch it in people's face. You can watch it in the energy. You can watch how they carry themselves when they're owned and run by feelings. And so that's one thing that I wanted just to share with you guys a little bit. We're going to build this in a second. Is just how do I guess what's my awareness of myself of how I'm showing up? Showing up here at work, and how am I showing up at home? And we all know people on the outside who live by their feelings, right? You can watch it. You don't know what you're going to get. You're not really sure what you're going to get from a being around them standpoint. Are they happy today? Are they sad today? Right? Are things going on in their life? You see the ones that have constant chaos. Why is that? They're constantly living by their feelings, not a standard. The ones that live by a standard tend to be what? Give me an example of that. You probably know someone.
Oh, who lives by a standard?
Right? Or do you know people outside of work? Right?
Well, someone not famous to that?
No, I was just saying,
yeah.
There's not a whole lot of people like that actually.
I tend to see both, a little bit both, right? But you see the ones that they're like a pure roller coaster. Feeling based, they'll do great, then they do horrible, right? They're all over the place. They'll be in a relationship, high as hell, amazing. Next week they're back single again, right? That's people who live everything based on feelings. The other side of that live by standards tend to be a lot more smooth, right? A lot more, I guess you can count on them a lot more. And so that's the key thing is like, how do I look at that and play that game for the long term? And we got to make sure building on that. So the first question is, hey, look, what am I basing my daily actions on today? Feelings. And here's the thing, am I brand new? Scared might be a feeling. Am I not making these dials because I'm scared to make a dial because I feel a certain way about what this person may think about me? And that's the key part here. I'm going to show you how we're going to build this in a second, because we're going to draw something out that kind of makes a big difference.
What did you say? What am I basing my actions on today?
Yeah. Am I basing that on my feelings or my standards? One of the hardest things for me to do is try to work and figure out how do we set clear standards for everyone that comes in so that you know what to do. That's how we came up with the 12 core steps. That's how we came up with the 1 thing and 4 keys. For each position, it's like, all right, here's what my minimum standard is. Right? That's the thing. My call accountability each week is part of a minimum standard. And so that's what I want you guys to look at and understand. Am I living my life by the standard or how I feel? You can see based on Friday's results, I mentioned this before, I just want to reiterate this, is that you can watch and see there's a lot of feelings going on. Okay? Because that just goes to show, all right, why do we share this? Because I want you to be able to dial that in. A small 30-degree change can create a massive difference on the back end. And so when I look at that, and Alex talked about this, like, man, why are some people get a contract and only get 3 of the 4 on the other side? Right? The hardest part to get was a contract, but only got 3 of my 4. Well, through that week, that's what you probably saw. A lot of roller coaster, a lot of feelings. Trying to get this deal closed or that deal closed, right? Whatever it is. You see it happen all the time, especially in the beginning when you have less pending deals. Because there's a movement of scarcity. And scarcity affects what? Feelings. And that's understandable, right? Because if I had that, but it's so important to watch out. If I focus and live by the standard, everything else falls in place. Same thing with deals. People waste 3 or 4 or 5 days, right, on one deal. And ultimately, you could have put 2 or 3 more under contract if you live by standards. So once you guys get that, what you got?
Well, I think the feelings get tricky too, because I'll hear it not only like on the keys themselves, but maybe person where they'll be like, well, I didn't hit all my keys, but I do feel like it was a win because I got one under contract. Or I didn't hit my dials today, but I do feel like it's a win because I had 2 conversations, or whatever it is. Those feelings get real tricky, and they're constantly trying to keep you in a comfort zone.
Guess what never changes though, technically? The standard, right? And so that's the key part. And here's the thing, we're all guilty of this. That's why stacking helps me a lot, and we'll teach you guys on that in a minute, is that the reality is everyone tends to always want to go to emotion. No one really wants to go to the facts. And so that's why it's so important to make sure, one, do I have my clear standard for the week? That's why we do keys yesterday. And I want you guys to do your own keys. Why is that? Why is it important for you guys to type your own keys and share them? That's your standard, right? And so when you take that and print it out, that's your standard that you're committing to. And so that's the key thing. We help shape that because we can help you cut time off if you try to figure that out on your own. But I can say, hey, look, here's what we found a standard to work very well is. And so once you have that standard, that's your guidance for this rest of the week as chaos is going to happen. I'll agree that chaos is going to happen either way. The minute we try to pretend that it's not going to happen is the minute that we're lying to ourselves and you're obviously in for a big surprise. But if I have the mindset, look, chaos is going to happen, this is my standard I'm living by, regardless of what happens to me this week. I'll make the 100 dials. I don't care if I got 25 houses to show, right? Between 9 and 11, I'm making a lot of calls. Every single day. And that's the one thing that creates a more systematic way of results. You see some people have 50, 60% one day call accountability, 10% the next day, right? That doesn't create a true, really guidance for business that allows you to be smooth. That's a roller coaster. And so that's the key part once you guys look at and understand there. And we're going to break this down here to really some things about achievers, underachievers, and also why you see people who don't continue to be successful. So the first block, once you guys draw this out, first block is belief. Second block is potential to the right. The third one here is action. And the last one here is results. What do y'all think this means?
I think everybody has belief in some type of a high ceiling, and I think they see the potential of what we do, but the action is where everything gets choked up, which is going to ultimately kill the results.
Yes. Results. And so, action.
It goes clockwise.
Let me see if you guys can see it. I see it. So, we talked about, I'm building up for you guys, right? We talked about here that we want to be driven by purpose, process, and reframe. We talked about successful people. Okay, overachievers live by standards. Underachievers live by feelings. Underachievers live by feelings. And so I want you to be willing to ask yourself right now, and maybe write this down, am I living by my feelings right now? This for not in today, but on Thursday, when you have some shit happen to you, are you living by standard or feelings? And so the first step is obviously making sure I have clear standards of what my standard is for today, for this week, for this 90 days. Right? As we start a new quarter here, we want to get into that. And so look at the bottom line is we all know that what really truly separates anybody is massive hard work. I got to do the hard work over and over and over and over to get the result. Everybody agree with that part, right? But here's what happened you find to have that really kind of hurts underachievers. I see this over and over is what happens is, I'll switch my colors up, is they tend to live on feelings, right? Which affects their belief. Why is that? Why would an underachiever that lives on feelings have their belief affected?
Because their belief will justify their feelings.
Okay, what else? Holly, what do you think? So if the way I live is based on feelings, how easily are my beliefs affected? Very easily. One thing happens, goes sideways, one deal falls through, all of a sudden my belief is shot. Now the problem with this, and people who are underachievers don't tend to have a very strong belief in themselves. And there's many reasons for that. We've taught this before, but a lot of times it tends to be they know they don't follow through. But if I know I follow through, I have a very much higher belief in myself. You see this over and over, and I can't teach this. This is a discipline that has to be built like a muscle. And so what happens for underachievers, they tend to not have a high belief in themselves. So they tend to not tap into their highest amount of potential. Right? They know they can't dig deep to their potential to push through the challenges, to make the calls they don't want to study the extra script, to role play they don't want to. And what happens, that tends to affect what? Their actions. They don't take the massive action needed. And so ultimately what happens is they do just enough, which then affects what? The results. And so it all comes down to all these pieces coming together and ultimately how they connected each day, right? And so I want us to look at that, how we go through it in that overall circle. And so that's the key thing there, is that because most people are not making the right choices to take the right action. And it all starts with a belief. And it goes back to what Joe talked about earlier, is that when you talk about studying and learning and growing, what happens to your belief? If I'm listening to podcasts all day long and I'm studying the sales tools that we have and listen to things that help me, and I'll go back and listen to my presentation and I can fix this, fix that, what happens to my belief? It goes up, right? And that belief really is like, man, I can do this, I can follow through, I can make this happen. And I tend to tap into an extra layer of potential that we all have. The difference between most people that aren't successful and the ones that do is they tap into a different realm of potential they have. And then they take massive, what? Action. You want to see a difference in that? People who makes $50, $60 a day. Then you have someone who makes $300 a day in the same amount of time. And that's what truly separates massive differences between underachievers and overachievers here, right? You guys with me on this? I lose you on this yet? I'm going to build this. There's one more piece that kind of comes into this part, but it goes different, right? And here's the thing. If you look at somebody that's an overachiever, right, you make a decision in all this, all the time. You look at somebody, Jerry Rice, for example. Jerry Rice's example that one of the guys went through in this is that how he operates is much different. And I think I had a quote from him that was important. I was looking at it. He said, how could someone not give 100% when it's 100% their choice? And so if you look at how to define winning the most way, defining winning, especially in this business, comes down right here only. Into action. Compounded action. I can't come in and make $300 in one day and be successful. Right? It becomes frustrating. It has to be compounded over time. Over and over and over. That's something, a good example of Amanda. Right? It was very frustrating early months. Making calls. Like you said, sometimes being too nice and you'd be here making these calls over and over and over. What'd you do? Massive action. Over and over and over. Now all of a sudden, right, moving up on the board, getting a lot of closings. It was 17 closed for the year, right? What I said on there. And so the reality is, here's the thing. That action builds up and compounds, but it comes down to this is seeds right here that either gets bigger, right, or stay the same based on what you're doing.